So hi, one of the Good Noise podcasters, Cade Earick. We're gonna ask him some questions today. I'm gonna start. So, what inspired you to start making music?
Oh, well, I guess, well, I grew up in a really musical family in general. I mean, essentially my dad's side especially really kind of was into music for, years as like listeners, not as like actual musicians. So I grew up in my household with artists like Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, a lot of those classic rock icons. And over time, my parents kind of were like, "Hey, why don't you start taking piano lessons?" And so started taking piano lessons, and piano is one of those gateway instruments where essentially you start playing it, and then like it leads to like everything else. So then I slowly was able to learn more and more instruments, and then I kind of got to the point where I realized that I want to start writing music, and so I took a lot of my inspirations from piano, like Ben Folds and Jamie Cullum, and then a lot of inspiration from um, the side of like Bruce Springsteen and those artists, and I slowly started developing my sound and writing lyrics back in eighth grade.
Wow.
And yeah, and I mean those lyrics are pretty trash,
Oh, all right.
I mean yeah, I've just gotten more progressively, better at it over the past couple of years. So yeah, no, it's just been one of those things where I grew up listening to a lot of great musicians, and then that kind of that music bug passed on to me.
Okay.
All right, solid. So, congrats on your two newest singles, Drown and Painless. How do you feel about the response to those so far?
The response has been pretty. I've been pretty excited with them actually. The I was a little nervous because the two songs are completely different. Drown is very much an indie folk song, more in the style of like Phoebe Bridgers and other great musicians like that. While Painless is more in the style of. I actually wrote that song while I was deep into Mac Miller, and
Hmm.
I wrote that song around the time Circles came out, which for me was pretty hard hitting album to say the least. So, but the reception has been absolutely fantastic, and I mean, what we're really excited because Drown has been submitted also into the International Songwriting Competition as well as
Oh,
John Lennon Songwriting Competition. So we are very hopeful, and yeah, it's the amount of love it's been getting, and I think it just makes me more excited to put out this forthcoming album. And so, yeah, no, it's been absolutely incredible.
That's
wow.
exciting.
Good luck with that.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So can you tell me a little bit about your writing process and how it's evolved from your first release?
Yeah, well, there's one of two ways that I write music. I either sit down with like an instrument acoustically, and I just kind of write it in that setting, and then bring it into my DAW, which is Logic Pro. And so that's a drown actually started that way. I knew I wanted to write a duet, and I knew about my incredible friend Carly Mack, who is the featured vocalist on it. I was like, I want to write a song like that. So I started off on my guitar, wrote it out, wrote the lyrics, and then brought it in, and then add a lot of the production stuff because I do a lot of stuff in my DAW. That's where a lot of the personality for my music comes from. Either that, or I will record like on my phone a guitar line on like voice memos, and then I'll drag and drop it into Logic, and then essentially work off of that and use that as the backbone for a new song and write it just essentially in Logic with the lyrics coming in as well. And so I've pretty much gotten my process of songwriting it down to a few hours. So I wrote Drown and Painless, I think, in 5 hours each, just
Wow.
at like midnight, sitting at my computer nonstop, just not stopping until it was finished. And of course, I went back and did better mixing and mastering, which I'm not great at. But when you're in that moment, you can't. You look past a lot of the flaws in it, and so when you come back at it the next morning, that's then you can see what actually has to be worked on. But it's just one of those things where I pretty much just sit down and bang out a song more than anything, or I'll have an idea floating in the back of my mind. I just kind of have to get it out. And so, I mean, I guess other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
All right. Wow. So, you said you got basically the main portion of each song done in like 5 hours.
And with the instrumentals too. So I essentially did the instrumentals, wrote the lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
hours, and I mean the next day I went back and added like some slight things, some more
Yeah.
but other than that, yeah, generally I sit down and I'm up from like 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning just
Hmm.
writing.
That's impressive, dude. That's crazy. Like, because when you said your writing process and you said 5 hours, I was like, okay, yeah, writing a song, just like writing like the lyrics of a song. I was like, okay, that's fair. But you're meaning like the instrumental and like basically the wow. Okay, I don't know. That blows my mind. I don't know.
One of the things where I've gotten comfortable enough with my instruments that I can sit down and I know exactly what I want it to sound like in my head,
Yeah.
and so I can just go down, sit down, and just play it right into my DAW, which is fantastic. Uh, one of the few things that's what's the word I'm looking for? One of the few benefits of having a really good sense of pitch in that sense.
Hmm.
That I can just go down. I know exactly how it's supposed to sound like, and I can
Yeah.
just get it right into the DAW. So.
Wow. That's a great skill. All right. So, where was your headspace while creating those singles?
Well, so let's see. Well, this is a little bit of a different headspace for me than I'm
Hmm.
normally used to. So I'm currently working on my fourth album at the moment. And essentially it's been one of those things where I've released an album every year I've been in high school. So I did one after my freshman year, after my sophomore year, after my junior year, and now this is the first year I'm actually going to be, I think, releasing two albums. Partially because I need to get production done for my college application this October. So it's one of those things where I wanted to challenge myself though, because most of my albums, except for love songs and other shit, that album itself was a loose concept. It had like a kind of a little bit of a structure to it. But my other albums have just been like standard pop albums, like this collection of songs, nothing really to it. But
Hmm.
this is the first time I've actually sat down and decided to write a concept album that follows a story throughout the whole thing. And so it's a very different headspace because I'm writing from the perspective of a 20-year-old who is living through his worst nightmare, which is and living through death. So for me, that's like something I've never had to experience. So I kind of have to what's the word? I guess I have to put myself in that mindset so I can write from that perspective. And
Yeah.
it's challenging for sure. It's been taking a lot longer to put together this album compared to other albums. I think we're about 6 songs in at the moment of hopefully a full length project because all my other projects have been only 7 songs and clocking around 30 half an hour. So I'm hoping to make this a little bit longer. But I mean, in order to tell the story, I'm hoping to tell through it. I mean, it's going to take a lot of time and effort and trying to the hardest part is trying to make sure that the message is clear enough to
Hmm.
the people that are listening because your songs can have that emotion, but it has to be able to. You shouldn't have to explain that like there is a story here. You should be able to sit down and be like, oh, wait a minute. There's some things throughout this music that's really kind of you know some similarities to it. Like on Drown and Painless, they come one after another on the album, and there is references to throughout the whole thing to being that idea of being trapped underwater, of feeling yourself drowning, and I
Yeah.
keep that lyrical theme throughout the whole thing just so there's something constant throughout all the songs, even though they might sound a little bit different. It's just trying to find those little things that can really keep the whole thing moving, everything flowing, and actually make everything sound like a complete album rather than just a loose collection of songs.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So what band or artist influences do you think you can hear the most on these new singles?
Well, I listened to them. Phoebe Bridgers definitely on
Hmm.
Drown. She's been one of my favorite artists. And actually, here's a fun fact, and I didn't know this, but so the album art for the upcoming album is actually done by Jackson Bridgers, the brother of Phoebe Bridgers.
Oh.
I didn't happen to know that when I hit him up on Instagram because some of his stuff came up in my feed, and I was like, "Hey, you want to do some art for this?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so I Venmoed him and everything. But then I find out later, after looking in the liner notes of Punisher, the new Phoebe Bridgers album, that
Hmm.
little did I know that's actually the brother of Phoebe Bridgers. So that's a little bit of a weird connection, but a cool one at that. So that's definitely influence for that song. Mac Miller on
Hmm.
Pain for sure. And I guess I'm just trying to. It's hard for me because there's like so many different influences from different areas. Like, it's hard to pinpoint down which ones are truly there. Actually, another one I would say is the music of Bon Iver, especially from his stuff for Emma Forever Ago.
Hmm.
And honestly, I guess when I've been writing some of my newer material, another major influence that's kind of worked its way in, not originally, but the new Taylor Swift album, Folklore,
Oh, folklore. Yeah.
nonstop, and that has started to leak its way into the songwriting, which is really awesome. But I mean, it's a variety of different styles, but it's mainly very much in that kind of indie folk um,
Yeah.
category. But the other thing though is like it's hard for me to like put a genre on something just because like you know if when you put a genre on an album or a
Hmm.
genre as like an artist, it kind of feels like you're confined or trapped in that.
Yeah.
I try in general to kind of stay away. Like, sure, I'll call it indie or indie folk, but it's a pretty broad term. So
Yeah.
try to not keep myself within those labels, just so that if I have an opportunity where I'm like, oh, I might actually want to branch out and do something else. Like one of the other songs that hasn't been released off the album, "One More Dance," is actually inspired by the work of like Elvis and doo wop
Mm.
music.
Hmm.
I'm very excited about, and you know, with a little bit of a twist because I kind of had to do it. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's really there's a lot of influences on this thing, and I think that some of the fun will be for people to kind of listen and kind of be able to pick that apart and be able to figure that out for themselves. Because I like wearing my influences on my sleeve, but also I try to change it up in a way that's not blatantly like a rip off
Yeah.
that artist.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Mhm, for sure.
So, is there a certain feeling you want your listeners to have while listening through your music?
Well, are we talking about the new album or just my music in general?
Let's do the new album because we're already on that topic. So,
Well, I want listeners to be able to essentially be able to put their own experiences and their own feelings
hmm.
into this album. And, that's with my music in general. I really want people to be able to relate to it in some way, and be able, to get something out of it. Because sometimes I listen to an album and like really good songs, but like there's that human aspect or a way you can connect to that and actually really enjoy it on another level is missing. So, in my songwriting style, I try to be able to, talk about topics and themes that, that might not be relatable, but in a
Hmm.
relatable way. But also, I just write a lot of love songs. And I mean, I think that's anything anybody can relate to. So, but the hardest thing about them, this new album, right, is trying to take these characters and the story arc and allow people to be able to place themselves within that. And
Hmm.
so, I want people to be able to take away something from it. I that's at least that's my favorite albums. That's what I get from it. I'm able to take something away from it. Now, is that going to be able? Is that going to be the case? I really don't know because I mean that's kind of a subjective thing.
Yeah.
But I'm really just hoping that it's less of a certain feeling, but more so just being able to while listening to the music, have a period of your own self reflection and
Hmm.
be able to, you know, place yourself within the music itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
So you did talk a little bit about that feature on Drown, but if you could go a little bit more in depth in that, like how that happened, how you wrote the song that way.
Well, so essentially, I met Carly at so I am very much a music student, and I do the All-State music festivals. I don't know if you all have heard of that, but in high school it's a real big deal, and I'm in the choirs for that. But so I my sophomore year I did the jazz choir, and so while I was there I got a solo on a song called Love Wins, and the second soloist on the song happened to be Carly. And
Hmm.
so we met, we talked a little bit, not too much, but then I actually discovered her SoundCloud, where I mean her plays have like I think like a few thousand plays on her songs. I was like, damn, she's a really talented musician and songwriter. So, ever since then I'd been in the back of my mind thinking, man, I really want to get her on a track. And I finally got to the point where I was writing this album. I was like, I need someone to play this other character. And so then I realized, wait, I got Carly. I've been meaning to work with her. So I hit her up and I was like, I have this song and, I can either write the lyrics or I can let you write your verse. So the song, her verse on the song, she actually wrote and
Oh.
herself, yeah, which I thought was um, it was really nice because like I know I have a certain way I write on my own music, and it's kind of like there's a little bit of a formula to it, as much as I don't want that to be the case. So having someone else with a different perspective, a different mindset come in to write that verse was really awesome. So
Mm-hmm.
I essentially texted her, and we I sent her the backing track, and I was like, this is going to be your section, and then you're going to be harmonizing on the chorus, and then we're going to sing an octave split at the end. And I let her record it, and she sent it back to me, and then I just brought it in to Logic. And one of the hard parts for me was like, I'm a big sound design guy. I like getting to work and manipulate different things like that. So in the breakdown of the song, the bridge, where it kind of like there's like a big drums that come in, drum set and everything. Essentially, she hadn't recorded any backing vocals or any like singing for that section. So I essentially had to go into her vocals, cut out certain sections and manipulate them,
Mm-hmm.
essentially make it sound like she had actually been singing on that part of the song when in reality she hadn't been.
Yeah.
So that was one of the challenging parts. Because when she recorded, I was like, I didn't want to, talk to her again about like, hey, you want to record some more parts for this middle section? So I just sat down one night and essentially just manipulated those vocals. So she was singing backup vocals in a spot she had not sung before. So after all that, though, I sent it along to her, and yeah, I mean, it was very much a distance thing because she lives about I think an hour and a half away from me. So
Wow.
down and record something like that, especially during quarantine where you can't go out like that. That wasn't a possibility. So we just kind of were able to link over the computer and be able to work on that remotely. And both of us are very proud of how it ended up turning out. I mean, I had no idea what was going to come out the other end of it, but I think out of like my whole catalog, it's easily my favorite song I've ever written and produced. Not just because of the sound, but also just because I'm kind of sick of my own voice. To hear someone else on one of my tracks it's super refreshing for sure.
Yeah, understandable. So, you've been talking a lot about this album and the storyline and how many tracks are on it. Can you tell us anything else? Will there be more features on the album?
Well, so that's one of the things I've been debating because, like,
Mhm.
this is work in progress. It's not concrete. So part of me has been like, yeah, I want to, introduce some more features on the album, but part of me is also like, I don't want to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Part to just keep it simple with the two characters, and so it's one of those things I've been debating, but I think most likely it's just going to be me and Carly, and most likely just Carly on the first track, maybe somewhere near the end of the album, getting her back in. But I mean, yeah, and the hardest part is like I've produced the bookends. It's just
Mhm.
the album in the middle is the really hardest part because the story follows a relationship. At the very beginning, it just ends with the
Yeah.
song, and after that, there's no names just because I want to keep it like anonymous, but the girl ends up contracting like a terminal illness that is a threat to her life. And so
Mhm.
after that, the guy has to go through this period of like self-reflection and introspection in order to truly understand like how much he needs her in his life. And so the hard part then is like conveying that introspection and conveying that retrospection because it's like flashbacks. And
Yeah.
you don't know there's a story going on. It could just feel like a whole collection of love songs. So, most likely it's probably just going to be the two of us just so my brain can handle it and
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
figure it out. I mean, eventually, of course I'd want to do more ambitious projects. I'd love to, I mean, I grew up with like Pink Floyd's The Wall and Quadrophenia and Tommy by the Who. So I love rock operas. Of course one day I'd love to write a rock opera, but that's a whole nother beast. I'm not ready to conquer yet. So
Yeah.
I'm baby steps. So I'm starting off with this one and hopefully we can work up to bigger things.
Okay.
So where do you see the project in the next 5 years?
Well, what do you mean? I just need a clarification on the question. Sorry.
Like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Like the project, like stadiums or selling out world tours?
Most likely a broke college student. Well, I mean, honest to God, I mean, I'm going to my senior year of high school this year. I'm applying to college. in about 5 years, I'll be pretty much out of college, and I highly doubt that, you know, the hard part about the music industry nowadays is that there's so many different artists coming in with like the internet. It's so easy to upload. There's just so many different people trying to stand out and, grab people's attention. It's really difficult. So I mean, of course I'd love to be, a big artist playing, big venues and getting to tour with other musicians. But in reality, I'm a realist. I'm probably just going to be staying at my parents' house producing music until I get somewhat of a following.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to keep my expectations low. So if something does happen, it's nice. It's a little bit of surprise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Oh, okay. So for the last couple questions, we're actually going to shift away from music and go straight to death row. So, if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Man, that's okay. I guess my favorite food on planet Earth is just anything buffalo chicken, like
Okay.
just buffalo sauce. I'd probably have just a big plate of chicken wings, and what would I drink? I mean, kind of lame, but like a Mexican Coke. That's like,
Okay.
or a cranberry Red Bull, whatever I'm feeling. That's
All
my
right.
go-to drinks most of the time.
Solid.
So if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
Man, that's really tricky. Oh wow, I'm just trying to think here. I guess. Well, one of my favorite shows I've really been into lately. It's kind of a fictional world, kind of not, but Atlanta with Donald Glover.
Yeah.
It's like technically a real place, but it's like a fictional version of a real place. So,
Yeah.
um, I find the whole world and atmosphere that Donald Glover created in that show really fascinating, intriguing, and also it has to do with music. So, I guess, I mean, either that or I guess, growing up, I was a huge fan of Futurama. So that's, I guess, another one I'd like to be in. I don't know which one I'd prefer, but two options, I guess.
Yeah, solid. All right. So I have the honor of asking the last question, and every single person we have spoken to have said it's the most important question.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
Purple.
That was quick as fuck. Holy shit.
Wow.
By a long shot. Oh my god, I've known that ever since I was one.
Is there like a specific shade of purple?
I guess blue purple.
Blue purple? Okay,
yeah.
like a blueberry purple.
I guess, yeah. Like if you imagine Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, when her face when she eats the candy, that's exactly like, I guess, that purple.
Yeah. I literally just watched that movie, so that's what I was thinking of. So.
I just that too. I was at a drive-in, I think, like last week, and they were playing it. Which,
bro, yeah, it was last week. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So as Chloe said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
Obviously, I'd like to plug the new album. If you haven't listened to the new singles, Painless and Drown, highly recommend it. I'm very proud of both those tracks, but especially Drown. And Carly's music is not currently out on Spotify in all that place, but if you go to SoundCloud, you can find Carly Mack's music, which I produced, or at least mixed and mastered her newest single, Bubblegum Kisses. So if you're interested in listening to that. And I guess another thing I like to plug is that me and a group of friends have been forming and working on an album. It's a hip hop collective called Crabs, and I'm a producer and singer on that project. So there's some more info that's going to be coming out about that. But if you'd like to keep up to date on that music and my own music, you can follow me on @Cade Earick on Instagram, and you can find all my music wherever you stream music in general.
All right.
Solid.
Well, thank you for sitting down with us. This has been Cade Earick, and we're the Good Noise Podcast.